When you talk about statistical models, there's a set of variables that you consider. And when you talk about win rates, it's a very difficult problem to solve because there are so many variables at each business in each industry. So how did you narrow down the list of variables for your model?
Yeah.
And is that work done or are you still exploring?
It's a really good question. We kind of like to follow like that Occam's razor principle, like keep things as simple as possible and get something reasonable out of it. And so kind of the basic model that we start out with, I mean, really the fundamental thing that makes us slightly different than what everybody else is doing is that instead of thinking of win rates as a static thing, like just a 50% of things are one or 25% of these things are one, we kind of realized through this connection with epidemiology that it depends on your time frame. Like, sure, in the long run, forever, 50% of these things might be one, but between now and the end of the quarter, maybe only 10% of them are one, right? So win rates are really a curve instead of just a single point statistic. And that's the main driving idea. And that really basic idea requires almost no data. It's like when was a deal created and when was it won? You don't even care when it was lost. And so the cool thing about starting with such a almost ultra basic model like that, it's surprising what you can get out of it, number one. And number two, the great thing about really simple models like that is that they're kind of immune to data hygiene problems. Like a lot of people will say, well, we're not updating our lost deals regularly and so on. We got all these hygiene problems in our data. But if you don't really care about that, you've elided that entire problem and you can get to a real solid statistic without the most robust process possible. I mean, we found working with clients that all of the really interesting data in CRMs and other data repositories in a business start to become super interesting the closer you get to a sale. Like, especially in B2B, we're thinking of kind of longer term sales for the most part. And when a sale starts out, all those different variables, you might have all kinds of variables. We see so much going on in these CRMs, and there's lots of really interesting stuff. You've got like ideal customer profile scores from all kinds of different vendors driving those types of really interesting analytics and just other business segmentation things. You might have sentiment analysis coming out of documents going back and forth between clients, just tons and tons of really interesting data. But when a deal is started, most of that isn't so relevant. You barely even have a good guess as to what the close date would be. I mean, the best way to guess for a close date for a new sale is to say what happened historically for deals that look like this. And we'll say, oh, that took 5 months to close, so let's just pick 5 months out. But as you get closer to that 5-month time horizon, many, many more of those signals become much more relevant and you can bring those in. So we tend to try to start with the most basic model possible and enrich that as you get closer to the endpoint.